Hi, it's Erica from Nootropics Depot and Emil, your product specialist.
Hey everyone.
Today, Emil and I are here to talk to you about 4 new products from Nootropics Depot. And this is a new video series that we're going to be starting where we give you an overview of the new products that have been released. We're going to tell you about their mechanisms of action and their main benefits, who might be interested in taking these products, and a little bit about our anecdotal experience from taking these products ourselves.
So, let's start with one of our favorites of this series, the black ginger extract. And black ginger comes from the ginger family, the Zingiberraceae family, or however you pronounce that. That's one I really struggle with. And if you cut this black ginger rhizome in the middle, you'll see that it's really dark purple, and that's where the name black ginger comes from. Black ginger has been traditionally used in Thailand for a very long time. Some tribes there, the Hmong Hill people tribe, for example, they use it as a way to boost their physical capacity and to reduce their level of perceived exertion. And that's definitely what we feel with it too. And you see that back in the mechanism of action. So if we very quickly dive into the mechanism of action, one of the things that black ginger does, it allows us to utilize the fuel sources that we get from our diet, such as glucose and lipids. And it burns those more efficiently. That's going to give us a bit of energy. It enhances mitochondrial biogenesis, which means that it helps us generate more mitochondria. And mitochondria are important for producing ATP. So more mitochondria equals more ATP equals more overall cellular energy. And you feel that with black ginger as a sense of physical energy that also extends to some mental energy. And that fits in perfectly with its libido, kind of vitality enhancing effects. And that's what black ginger is also very popular for, because it is quite an efficient PDE5 inhibitor. And PDE5 inhibitors can enhance blood flow to the genitals. And that will allow for better erection quality, or in the case for female sexual function, more blood flow to the clitoris, which can enhance sexual satisfaction. So for both men and women, there could be a very interesting libido aphrodisiac effect with black ginger. Another thing that black ginger does, and this is very similar to cyanidin 3-glucoside, it allows us to upregulate the brown adipose tissue, or brown fat. And brown fat is very specialized in burning fat. And it produces heat during this process. And this is a process that we often see referred to as thermogenesis. So black ginger does a great job of helping to shed a little bit of fat. And I think it will be very popular for this reason, especially because black ginger can enhance testosterone synthesis, together with enhanced muscle protein synthesis. So those two are obviously going to be anabolic, and you're losing fat. A better combination doesn't really exist. So this is going to be a very popular, in my opinion, body recomposition supplement that will stack well with things like cyanidin 3-glucoside or other testosterone boosters like Tongadali and Cistanche. And really interestingly is that black ginger is a very strong SIRTN1 activator, much stronger than resveratrol. In a recent study, it was shown that black ginger is about 4 to 5 times stronger as a SIRTN1 activator as resveratrol. And resveratrol is kind of the industry standard for SIRTN1 activation. And SIRTN1 activation is very important for the overall NAD+ cycle. So it will stack really well with NMN, nicotinamide riboside, and even OptiNAD+ and NADH. They're all going to be quite synergistic, and I think this presents a very interesting option for people looking for a SIRTN1 activator that don't necessarily want to take resveratrol, even though resveratrol is great too. We both take it. Anecdotal experience-wise, do you want to start, Erica?
Sure. Today I took black ginger and I felt a really strong energy and motivation boost at about the 30 to 45 minute mark after taking it. Then I called the bank. And this activity was not the right fit for the motivation boost that black ginger gives, mainly because I had to wait for a little while. I had to search for some out-of-date forms. I had to deal with the unpleasantness of just being on the phone for too long doing a task that wasn't rewarding. And the combination of this motivation and energy from black ginger with this very menial task was not so wonderful and pleasant for me. However, once I put the phone down and I started getting to work on the rest of my tasks for the day and setting up the video, I felt a big mood boost. I felt a lot of physical energy. Now I feel like I'm really enthusiastic to be talking about these new products and to be having a bit of a social moment and reaching out to you. This is definitely a pro-social supplement, and this is something that I could imagine taking before going out with friends, before going out for some physical activity outside. And it's generally very uplifting. I would say it's so uplifting to the point that it overshadows some of my other favorite mood-boosting supplements.
And it's the same for me, and one of the best ways I can describe black ginger is the opposite of anhedonia. We see a lot of people talking about that these days, anhedonia being the experience of having a hard time to find joy in the things that normally give you joy. I would say black ginger is the opposite. It is quite hedonic. It makes me enjoy the things that I love doing even more. Music sounds better, food tastes better, and if I'm doing a couple of push-ups, the physical sensation of that feels more rewarding and nice. So I can imagine this works really well as a pre-workout ingredient, especially considering that black ginger is a PDE5 inhibitor and should give you really big muscle pumps. In addition, of course, to all of the nutrient partitioning effects that seem to be taking place, the fat loss effects, the muscle protein synthesis and testosterone effects, I think this is a great supplement for overall fitness and libido, overall vitality.
How's your experience been so far?
That's been my experience mostly. It gives me a bunch of physical energy. It makes me feel really on top of the world. Nothing can go wrong. It's a really strong mood booster. But as Erica said, it does have to be in the right scenario. So if I'm sitting doing a really boring task, it's not going to be that nice. But if I'm taking black ginger and I'm doing the things I love, like going out for a bike ride, going out for a walk, listening to music, going to a show, socializing with friends, doing this, because I really love doing this, this is nice. This is giving me a lot of pleasure, as you can maybe see. I also took black ginger this morning, and I think an interesting thing is, and you've all heard my voice a lot, and I listen to my voice all day long, and you do too. I feel like it is a little bit deeper. I kind of felt like I was getting a cold or something, but I'm not. It's just over the last couple of days of regularly dosing black ginger for about the last week, my voice seems to have deepened. And I think that's an interesting thing about black ginger. It seems to be kind of masculinizing. It brings up more of those masculine qualities. And in the it kind of gives you this like Conor McGregor confidence, walking around like that, this kind of feeling. That's what black ginger really captures in my experience. So even though I'm saying it has a masculinizing effect, it just makes me feel more confident. It makes me feel more about like what society might expect of me as a male. Strong, confident, ready to fight a big woolly mammoth or something like that, even though they're probably not that scary. A saber-toothed tiger. It's priming me to fight a saber-toothed tiger. But with that, and what Erica said too, if I'm faced with something I don't like, it turns into negative aggression. So don't go call your bank. Maybe don't go hang out with that friend that you don't really like, because you might end up punching him later in the day.
So if you're looking to get into fights with prehistoric animals, then you might be interested in checking out black ginger. But all jokes aside, it's a really nice mood boost. It shines through even with taking my full normal stack that I do every single day. The mood boost from the black ginger really does still stand out to me. And I would highly recommend this for anybody who's looking to increase their fitness, somebody who's looking for a nice pre-workout supplement that isn't a typical pre-workout, and for anybody who needs a little bit of extra motivation, stimulation, and energy in the bedroom. This is definitely going to be a supplement that you want to try.
Definitely. So let's move on to something that you have in your hands.
Yes, we're going to talk about Relievex.
Which is perfect because right before recording this podcast, or actually an hour before recording this podcast, I realized I hadn't tried a higher dose of the Relievex yet. I've tried higher doses of everything else that we're talking about today. Black ginger, by the way, in the higher dose, I took 2 doses back to back, a single capsule, and then an hour later, another capsule. And to me, that was a little bit over the top. It felt almost a little bit like I couldn't control how much pleasure I was having, and it was a bit too pushy in that sense. So be careful with black ginger. the dose that we set is quite strong. With Relievex, I wanted to try a bigger dose too to see what would happen, and at a larger dose, the physical relaxation is very pronounced. The mental relaxation is also quite pronounced, but it isn't making me tired, as you can see, which is really nice, and it's definitely providing a very nice mood boost. Relievex is our stack that is targeting pain from a different direction. So we have a lot of pain management supplements that are mainly targeting inflammation and oxidation a little bit. So things like curcumin, andrographis, boswellia, they're all really good for dampening inflammation, and inflammation plays a huge role in pain. But what about if you have a bit of a catch in your muscle or a muscle knot, or your muscles just feel tense, like you almost feel like you're doing this all day long even though you're not, and you just can't relax your shoulders and your neck muscles, and that's causing you all sorts of issues. A lot of people have that nowadays. We sit behind computers, maybe after a long car journey or an airplane journey, maybe a couple days later you're feeling stiff and uncomfortable, and you can take anti-inflammatory supplements, and this can help. It can help ease some of those issues, but we found that if we take something like supercritical coriander, for example, even though it doesn't have a very pronounced pain management effect, that physical relaxation really helps take our mind off our sore and tight muscles and helps relax it and kind of melt everything away. And that's what I'm feeling right now. My whole body feels really warm, just like I'm wearing a warm blanket almost. My muscles feel like they've kind of melted away. It's really nice. And it has a really nice mood boosting effect. And that was really the goal with Relievex. So Relievex being an adjunct or a standalone for most people to tackle physical pain. So the main goal here was really to enhance that physical relaxation aspect, the muscle relaxation aspect of pain management. And we did that through a combination of kava, which is acting on the GABAergic and cannabinergic system, and specifically our kava extract is high in dihydromethysticin, which is still a very good inflammation regulating compound. So there's definitely some inflammation attenuation going on in Relievex too, even though that's not the main goal. Kava's main goal really is to enhance GABAergic function and cannabinergic function, and over time we've seen that a lot of people like our kava for that aspect and for muscle relaxation, so that's why it's in there. Then we boosted the GABAergic effects a little bit by adding in lemon balm. Lemon balm is a GABA transaminase inhibitor. This means that it stops the breakdown of GABA to glutamate. So normally this enzyme comes in called GABA transaminase, and it takes GABA, it breaks it down into glutamate, and then you lose the relaxing effects of GABA. So if you're inhibiting GABA transaminase, then that results in higher levels of overall GABA. Combine this with the effects of kava, and you have a very nice GABAergic effect, which helps relax our muscles. And then we added in some palmitoyl ethanolamide, which works on the endocannabinoid system and has a very interesting effect on pain perception. Then we added in tetrahydromagnolol, which is a very strong agonist of the cannabinoid CB2 receptor. This is the non-psychoactive receptor and produces a very nice relaxing effect. It has a good pain management effect. A lot of you have had great effects with it, and it stacks well with other cannabinoid type supplements such as maca. And that's another thing that's in here. So maca is acting as a Fa inhibitor, and Fa is an enzyme that normally breaks down endocannabinoids. So if we block the activity of Fa, then we get more endocannabinoids, and endocannabinoids are very important for their ability to modulate pain. So we're building out quite a strong cannabinergic endocannabinoid section in this stack, which obviously goes very well with the GABA side of things. Then we added in some ginger. Ginger is good at reducing inflammation, reducing oxidation, which has a great effect on pain, but it's also acting on neurological receptors that help with our ability to perceive pain, or to perceive pain less, which is exactly what we want here. And it's acting through receptors such as the TRP family of receptors, these mechanoreceptors. It has a quite an interesting effect there, but more importantly, a lot of the times when we're having some physical discomfort, tense muscles, and some pain. We can get a bit of nausea too. And ginger helps prevent that. So it has a soothing, overall body soothing effect, but it is also soothing in terms of nausea, which can really come in handy if you're really struggling with some pain. Then we've put in some piperine. Piperine is there to enhance the overall bioavailability of everything. We see it a lot in a lot of different products, and we decided let's give it a shot too. We tried a version with and without, and with definitely worked stronger, so that's why it's in there. And because it's a new product and I'm keeping a lot of information in my head, Erica, hand me that bottle so I can see if I'm missing anything. Yes, I'm missing actually a very important thing, our supercritical Boswellia extract. And the supercritical Boswellia extract acts on those mechanoreceptors that I was talking about with ginger, specifically the TRPV3 receptor. The TRPV3 receptor gets activated with mild warmth. So if you're taking a nice hot shower, you're activating your TRPV3 receptors, and that can help relax your muscles too. The supercritical Boswellia extract does this internally. So if you take it, you feel this warming sensation throughout your muscles. And as I said earlier, I feel like I have a bit of a warm blanket over me. That's definitely coming from the supercritical Boswellia extract. I was surprised. Well, I missed it because we went back and forth if it was worth putting it in, because it is quite a premium ingredient and it did increase the cost of Relievex a bit. But in our versions without the supercritical Boswellia extract, it didn't have this warm blanket, melt your stress and tense muscles away kind of effect. So it's very important, and I think it's super unique of an extract, and it's even more unique to have in here with all of these other unique bioactives. Overall, I just really like how physically relaxing it is, but also mentally relaxing. And in our beta testing rounds, a few people mentioned that because of some pain they were having, one of our employees unfortunately got into a bit of an accident and had an injury, and this was keeping them up at night. And this had been going on for quite a long time. They tried a beta sample of Relievex. The pain reduced quite a lot, but more importantly, they were able to sleep a full night and have good sleep quality, and that was a really big thing that they liked about it. And we've noticed that too. If you take it at night, it definitely enhances your sleep quality, which is no surprise because it contains some GABAergics and cannabinergics, which definitely have a positive impact on overall sleep induction and sleep quality, staying asleep, waking up feeling refreshed. So if you're having pain and it's making it hard for you to sleep, Relievex is really nice too. Additionally, oftentimes when you're experiencing pain, your mood is lower too, so it's nice here that we have basically a very strong mood boosting stack built into a pain management stack. So it checks a lot of boxes. I do have to say, at this full dose, it is a little bit strong, and I definitely have to try my best to stay focused. It is definitely making things a little bit fuzzy. So if you're looking to be very functional throughout the day, a single capsule dose is fantastic. But if you're reaching the end of the day and you really need as much help as possible to really relax, to turn your brain off, you don't need to do anything super complex, maybe try a double dose. And that's how we really designed Relievex too, that you could use it as a lower dose, the 2 capsule dose, or even a single capsule dose would still be quite beneficial, or you can ramp it up and go to higher dosages to reach where you want to go. And I think right around 4 capsules, it's probably where you should be stopping because there's no real reason to keep going beyond that, but 4 capsules does feel really nice, very physically relaxing. So now that I've talked your ear off, Erica, what's been your experience with Relievex?
When I took Relievex, I felt that my everyday tense, sore lower back was a little bit less sore. It didn't completely eliminate all of the pain and tension, but it definitely made it possible for me to stand up and sit down without that fear in the back of my mind that I'm about to experience some serious pain as I'm sitting or standing. And this is something which can kind of fade to the background in everyday life, but when I took Relievex, I felt that a lot of this pain and this kind of stiffness and bracing myself for pain went away. And then I was able to feel the soreness, but without that extreme, almost like panic feeling that's coming from my lower back. So I found this to be really useful. The second time that I took the Relievex, I felt that I was more in tune with my body as a whole. Also, I was paying attention to see whether it would help with some extra tension that I was feeling from my shoulders and again in my lower back. And it definitely does help to relax everything. It takes my pain down a notch to the point where it doesn't feel as extreme. And it is generally a bit relaxing mood-wise. I wouldn't say that I find it hard to focus when I've taken it, but it doesn't increase my focus at all.
Yeah. You haven't taken the higher dose, a mega dose, like
No.
I just did before recording this. This is kind of a thing we do on our podcast. If you are not familiar with our podcast, we usually take a supplement before we start recording. So let's say we're talking about Systemax, like our last podcast, we'll take Systemax. And oftentimes we like to take a slightly higher dose so the effects are a little bit more dramatic so that we can talk about them and maybe you can even see what's happening. So in this sense, taking a higher dose of Relievex was an interesting idea, but now maybe I'm regretting it just a touch because it's a little bit harder to focus and to pull all of this data out of my memory. But that's good if it's a little bit later at night because it slows down your brain. It allows you to relax. It allows you to maybe do some stretching. I think that's a really nice thing. If you're feeling sore, sometimes it can be hard and a bit nerve-wracking to get started with some light stretching. This, because it relaxes everything and it relaxes your mind, it can be very nice for a little yoga session, a little bit of meditation even, a stretching session, all of these things that can help you deal with pain in a different and unique way. So, I think we've said enough about Relievex. Clearly, we're big fans of it, so definitely try that out. Keep it on hand if you need something to help relax your body and your mind. So, now let's move on to something that's in my hand again, which is L-Tryptophan.
Speaking of relaxing your body and your mind, this L-Tryptophan has been a really interesting new product to try because it's very relaxing. And for those of you who are familiar with the stories that are told about Thanksgiving and turkey and the fact that turkey gives you really great naps, it's because of L-Tryptophan. And now we have L-Tryptophan isolated in a supplement, and this is something I've experienced. It's really relaxing. It's not tiredness inducing. It's not lethargy inducing, but it feels good to take it during the day, and it will definitely help your sleep quality at night.
So, in this last week, usually when we have a release coming up, my stress levels are a little bit higher. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm doing a lot of writing. There's a lot of communicating on Reddit. This also happened to be a release that fell in our podcast release week, so there's a lot going on for me. We had a little trip to Belgium where, by the way, go to Tour de Goze if you're interested in probiotics, fermentation, and beer. We had a very interesting time looking at how spontaneous fermentation beers that are full of probiotics are made in Belgium for a whole weekend. But all of that, all of the traveling, all of this, it definitely reduced my sleep quality. Now that I have a fitness tracker, Erica has one too now, so we can give you a lot more data about ourselves. I saw that my sleep quality started slipping. Every day that the stress came a little bit higher, my sleep quality dipped. There were 2 nights where I actually wasn't able to get enough sleep because we had to do some traveling. And I just couldn't get my sleep quality to go back up. So I thought, let me try a dose of L-Tryptophan before sleep, thinking that it might slightly enhance things and make it a little bit easier for me to recover from the stressful week and the traveling. And to my surprise, my sleep quality was basically perfect out of nowhere. So I went from having multiple nights in a row of bad sleep quality, and then I took L-Tryptophan and I had 8.5 hours of very nice quality sleep. So I thought that was interesting. We've also been taking it in the mornings, and like Erica said, it provides a very nice relaxing, but also for me a little bit of an uplifting effect. Not so dissimilar from things like Cognan, Saffron, all of these serotonergic supplements, but it feels a bit more neutral with less overall character. But I think that's really interesting because it means that L-Tryptophan is easy to combine with other things. If you combine it with cognans, cognans will feel stronger. If you combine it with saffron, saffron will feel stronger. So I think it's really interesting there. Of course, L-Tryptophan, it's a very basic supplement. You can get it from a lot of different places. We just decided to also release it because I think this is a product that a lot of you will like. You would like probably getting it from Nootropics Depot because you know that you can be assured about the quality, even though it is such a basic thing. And it just makes us more of a one-stop shop because you can pick up something like saffron and you want to enhance the saffron effect a little bit. Now you know that L-Tryptophan can do that, and now you can get L-Tryptophan from us. So, and we like taking L-Tryptophan. It's actually something I've never really taken. You've never really taken.
I haven't taken it, no.
No one has taken it at the office. And similar to GABA being something that we never really took, and then once we started beta testing it, it actually made it into our stack pretty quickly. L-Tryptophan is 100% making it into my stack. What about yours?
For sure. I'm going to add it to my everyday stack.
So, for those of you not familiar with L-Tryptophan, let's dive into the mechanism of action just a little bit. L-Tryptophan is an amino acid. It's an amino acid that is found in our diet. Amino acids make up peptides when they all link together, and when peptides become big and large and then start folding in on themselves, you get proteins. And when you consume dietary proteins, like Erica was saying, the turkey or other protein sources, and you start digesting those proteins start falling apart into peptide chains. Those peptide chains start falling apart into their own amino acids, one of the most abundant amino acids being L-Tryptophan, which is a good thing because L-Tryptophan is very necessary for serotonin synthesis. In fact, without L-Tryptophan, we can't synthesize serotonin because that's the precursor. So tryptophan is converted by the enzyme tryptophan hydroxylase to 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is also known as 5-HTP. Then 5-HTP is converted in a single step to serotonin. And interestingly, serotonin is then converted to N-acetylserotonin, and N-acetylserotonin is converted to melatonin. So L-Tryptophan is responsible for a whole array of interesting and very important neurotransmitters that have an effect on mood and sleep, which is why tryptophan is having a positive effect on our mood and on our sleep. The interesting thing about L-Tryptophan and why we prefer it over 5-HTP, 5-HTP is going to surpass a rate-limiting enzyme. So tryptophan hydroxylase, which turns tryptophan into 5-HTP, we call this a rate-limiting enzyme. If there's way too much L-tryptophan and there's way too much serotonin being produced, that enzyme gets saturated and it just turns off and it turns no more L-tryptophan into 5-HTP and no more if there's not enough 5-HTP, then serotonin isn't being synthesized. But if you just take 5-HTP, you bypass this rate-limiting enzyme and you can basically create an unending supply of serotonin, which in our opinion is maybe not so interesting. L-tryptophan is a much more natural way of enhancing your overall serotonin levels. Very similar to L-tyrosine, which serves a similar function. It is an amino acid that we get through our diet, but instead of converting to serotonin, it converts to dopamine. But you can also bypass tyrosine hydroxylase, the enzyme that turns tyrosine into L-dopa, by just taking L-dopa, like mucuna pruriens. And then you can unlock way more dopamine synthesis than you could with L-tyrosine. In some scenarios, that might be interesting, but overall, in our opinion, if you just want to take a daily supplement to enhance your overall neurotransmitter balance, then taking something lower in the chain that's protected by a rate-limiting enzyme is a little bit of a smarter idea, which is why we really like L-tyrosine, but also L-tryptophan. And yeah, it's not the most exciting supplement, but it has some very unique effects. They're subtle, but I think they're nice for a lot of different types of stacks.
Absolutely.
So now let's move on to the last one that's in your hand.
Yes, and that's going to be our Supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract. And this particular extract is a standalone, but this is one of the ingredients that is in our new Systemax stack. This Supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract is a really exciting extract because we're using one of our newest favorite solvents, and that's supercritical CO2. So if you've tried our supercritical CO2 coriander or myrrh or holy basil extracts, this Cistanche extract is going to be created from the same solvent, and it's going to give some similar effects in terms of the really powerful, concentrated, and really specific benefits that you are also going to be getting from these other supercritical CO2 extracts. So Emil, tell us a little bit about what this extract is doing for us, what its effects are, the benefits, and why we decided to come up with this particular extract, even though we've carried Cistanche extracts for quite some time.
Yeah, and to really understand that, I'll have to dive a little bit more into what Erica was mentioning earlier, supercritical CO2. So, CO2, carbon dioxide, that exists as a gas. If you're having a nice soda or some bubbly water, the more healthy alternative, then you're drinking some carbon dioxide gas. If you've ever played around during Halloween maybe with putting some chunks of dry ice into a tub of water and it smokes, and that's also CO2 gas, starting from dry ice where carbon dioxide has become a solid under the right temperature. Now, if the temperature and pressure are at the ideal level, then carbon dioxide can also exist as a type of fluid that behaves both as a fluid and as a gas. And you call this a supercritical fluid. So you can basically force a liquid gas through plant material and it extracts. And then once you've extracted everything, you let the pressure off, and now you just have the extract because the CO2 just immediately goes out of solution and becomes a gas. And
this makes the extract super clean. There isn't any extra solvent left over. And
which, by the way, all of our extracts are clean. Even if we're using water and ethanol, there's not going to be water, there's not going to be ethanol left in there. But this is a very green way of doing it because there's CO2 everywhere. You don't have to go through a fermentation and a distillation process to get your ethanol. You don't have to use water. It's just CO2 gas. So it's really called a green extraction methodology. But the real benefits here with water and ethanol, you have to generally use quite high temperatures. Usually we're using boiling temperatures, so boiling water and boiling ethanol, and this helps speed up the efficiency and the speed of extraction. The real benefit, and then also to get the solvents, the water and the ethanol out of the finished extracts, you also need some heat. You need to either pull it off under a vacuum, but you have to heat it up. You have to volatilize the solvents to pull them off, to clean them up. With supercritical CO2 extraction, one big benefit is that the extraction can occur at about 30 degrees, 35 degrees Celsius. That's a nice hot summer's day. Not enough to really degrade some of the more sensitive compounds, and not enough to volatilize a lot of these terpene volatile type compounds that might be in Cistanche that we wanted to preserve. And then another benefit is, once it comes out of the supercritical CO2 extraction and you let go of the pressure, then all of that CO2 just comes rushing out of solution and you don't have to apply any heat or any different methods to get the CO2 out. So it's a way in which we can potentially preserve the more delicate compounds. We can have maybe a more full spectrum set of compounds. And that's why we went for supercritical CO2 for Cistanche, because we wanted to see if there were maybe some volatiles that had an interesting effect. There isn't a whole lot of research about this, but when we were trying non-extracted Cistanche, which we also recently released, we felt, and especially as we kept increasing the dose, there was this unique kind of energizing, stimulating, mood-boosting effect lurking way behind that kept getting stronger as we increased the dose. This was something that we were not finding in our water ethanol extract as much, so we wanted to enhance that. And that's why we had the idea of, okay, let's try using supercritical CO2 as an extraction solvent. We did a pilot batch, a custom batch. This, as far as we know, we're the only people in the world making a supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract. And when we got the supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract and we tried it, that mood-boosting, energizing effect that we were noticing in the background of the non-extracted Cistanche came out in full force. And the other day, a couple days ago, I hadn't tried a higher dose of the supercritical Cistanche standalone yet, but I had on the Systemax podcast. So on the Systemax podcast, I took 4 capsules of Systemax, which is 4 times the dose of Systemax, and each capsule of Systemax contains 100 milligrams of the supercritical CO2 extract. Each capsule of the standalone supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract contains 200 milligrams. So I took 2 capsules of it, which brought me to the same level that is in Systemax, and it was just as stimulating as my experience with Systemax. So if you go and look at that podcast, you can see me talking about how stimulating it was. The effects of Systemax in terms of stimulation definitely are very different still than the supercritical CO2 extract, but as a standalone, but there's something really interesting going on there. And similar to the black ginger, it made me very hedonic. It made me chase pleasure-giving activities, and that's really nice. It gave me a huge mood boost, but it was honestly a little bit too much. And again, it had me walking around kind of Conor McGregor style with my arms. It definitely made me a bit cocky, which might be exactly what you're looking for. I'm not looking for it because I'm probably cocky enough as it is. And what's been your experience with Supercritical Cistanche?
The Supercritical Cistanche has been a little bit overstimulating for me. I can definitely feel that it's increasing my energy levels and my motivation, but a little bit too much. And this is quite a different experience than what I've had with the black ginger, where the black ginger makes me feel excited and social and open and interested in what I'm doing, whereas the supercritical CO2 Cistanche is a really intense, extreme, super focused and super stimulating experience for me. So if I was getting ready to do some very intense exercise, perhaps like a HIIT exercise, CrossFit, or a class that would require some really serious power, the supercritical CO2 Cistanche would be the extract that I would go for. But on an everyday basis, just going through my daily routine, doing a little bit of work at home and practicing, it stimulates me over the edge. So if you're looking for something that's super stimulating, this is definitely interesting to try, for sure.
Which is really interesting to note because I'd always heard about people getting stimulated from Cistanche, and I never personally experienced it. I didn't experience it even with normal doses of Systemax. I didn't really experience it with a double dose of Systemax. I experienced it a little bit with a normal dose of the supercritical CO2 Cistanche, but not a whole lot still. So again, I'm probably not very sensitive to those stimulating effects because some people even get very stimulated by the non-extracted Cistanche. But when I took the 2 capsule dose, the 400 milligrams, it was very stimulating. That was the same experience I had with Systemax. It was very stimulating at that 4 capsule dose. So I think the supercritical CO2 is a big driver of that overall effect for me. So if you know that you respond with a lot of stimulation to our other Cistanche extracts, then maybe the supercritical CO2 extract is not for you. If, on the other hand, you haven't necessarily felt that unique level of stimulation and you want to, or you have felt that unique stimulation and you want more of it, then definitely check out the supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract. I think as it stands, Systemax is still my favorite, but then right afterwards is actually the supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract. Then right after that is actually the non-extracted Cistanche, which I think is really interesting, has some unique effects that still are not in a supercritical CO2 Cistanche or even in the water ethanol extract. And then the water ethanol extract is coming in last for me. That doesn't mean it's bad by any means. I think it's still fantastic. It's the Cistanche extract that got me started on Cistanche. We've both been taking it for many years. Unfortunately, it's been surpassed. And for you guys, that's fortunate because it means that we're constantly innovating. I still think that the water ethanol extract has its place. Clearly, because we put it in Systemax, it definitely helps round everything out. It helps give you a nice amount of aceticide and echinacoside. Very high amounts, 50% echinacoside, 10% aceticide. But that's an interesting thing, actually, if we very quickly talk about standardizations. The supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract is standardized to 20% echinacoside, which is lower than the water ethanol extract. However, it is also standardized to 20% aceticide, which is double the amount that's in the water ethanol extract. So there's an increase there. But then there's an increase in other bioactives that we can't quantify through current science. So it's interesting. We don't know what's causing these effects, but it's in there, and the supercritical CO2 extract is pulling it out a lot. So to me, it feels a lot stronger than the water ethanol extract, even though bioactive-wise, it's actually not stronger. So that's really unique.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the end of our new product roundup. So we have Supercritical CO2 Cistanche extract. We have Relievex for relaxation and pain support.
We have L-Tryptophan for sleep, mood, relaxation. And then we have black ginger for making you feel like an animal, basically. It's going to give you confidence, libido, energy. It's a really nice one, and it's a bit of a wild card. And I think with that, this is one of the more exciting releases of 2024. We haven't had that many releases in 2024 yet, but I think this one's really cool because we have a very wide spread of products. We have a product that's really good for mental and physical relaxation and pain. We have a product that's really good for energy, for vitality. We have a product that's kind of basic, but really nice. Very nice for enhancing your mood and your sleep quality. And then we have the most complex of the bunch, which took a long time to dial in, and I think fits somewhere that nothing else fits in yet. And I think that's really interesting. So personally, this is one of my favorite releases, and I will be incorporating a lot of these products in my daily stack.
So that brings us to the end of our new product release video.
And I think this is a fantastic release, and I hope you guys are going to have a lot of fun with it.
The two products, Black Ginger and Supercritical CO2 Cistanche, are going to be really great for increasing motivation and mood and just general fitness. And L-Tryptophan and Relievex are both going to be really nice for relaxation, pain management, and getting your mood and your energy levels just more generally balanced throughout the day and while you sleep. We're going to be coming to you with new videos talking about new product releases in the future so that you can get a really good idea of what you should add to your shopping cart, what's going to be interesting to try, and what can perfect your daily stack.
See you next time.
See ya!